Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I would like to show how can you create a table in Oracle Apex. So we're going to create vendor and product table. So let's say you have this two table with the attributes. So one vendor can supply many products and each product can be supplied by one and only one vendor. Once you have your DDL script, okay, like this, you can first write it, or if you already have the script, you can actually copy and paste the script into Oracle Apex. So let's go through the DDL statement for vendor. So we have here create table vendor with vcode, vname, vcontact, varea code, vphone, vstate, vorder for the attributes. And we have assigned the vcode as the primary key, and we have two check constraints. One is on vcode, so that vcode number will be between 1000 and 999, and another one is vorder, so that it can only accept y or n values. So we have two sets of DDL statement here. So what is the difference? So as you can see here, for the first one, we define the primary key after we write all the attributes, and in the second DDL statement for vendor, after we write the vcode for the attribute name and the data type, we define the primary key right away here. So there are two positions where we can define the primary key. Okay, either after we write all the attributes or after we write the vcode here. Okay, so we can, once we have the script here, we can copy and paste either one of this into Oracle Apex. Now you can go to Apex homepage and sign in with your account. Okay, once you are in the Apex, go to SQL Workshop and then SQL commands. So you can type in your DDL statement here in the statement window, or if you already have the DDL written somewhere else, so you can just copy and paste. Okay, and then you press the run button. Okay, so if the object is already been created, because I have run the statement before, so you can actually drop the table first and then run. Okay, so it says here that the table has been dropped, so you paste again and then you run. Okay, so it says here that the table has been created. So how can we check that the table has been created? Okay, you can go to SQL Workshop and go to Object Browser. Okay, so now we already have vendor under the table. Okay, if you click down the drop down arrow here, so you can actually view different type of objects, but so far you only have created one table. So this is vendor. You can click on the vendor table name. Okay, and here is the structure of the table. So you can see all the attributes here, okay, under the column name and the data type. Okay, you can also look at the data if we have the data inserted into table, but right now we haven't done any insertion yet, so the table contains no data. So we can go and check what are the index that has been created based on the DDL. So there is only one index created here, that is unique index on the vcode attribute, and we can also check on other attributes. You can also check on other properties such as constraints. So in vendor table, most of the constraints that have been created is not null constraint. So here we can see all the not null constraint as well as the constraint check constraint for vcode and vorder. Okay, so we can see here that the constraint has been named automatically by Oracle. So it will begin with sys underscore. So we can actually rename this constraint so that it can be easily identified later. So it's easier for us if we want to find any specific constraint. To create table product, we can follow similar steps like when we create vendor just now. So you can just copy and paste the product DDL. So we can see here all the attributes for products, and the primary key is vcode, and we have one foreign key referring to vcode in vendor table, and we have 4 check constraints on QoH, minimum, price and discount. So we can run the script or the DDL statement. Okay, so it says here that the table has been created. So again, we go to object browser. Okay, so now we have the product table. Okay, so we can go and check all the properties here. Okay, so we have no data yet. Okay. For the index, so we have one unique index on the primary key, that is vcode. Constraints, we have all the not null constraints as well as the check constraints here. So there are 4 check constraints. Okay, so actually if you notice here, so there is also other things that you can do in this window, such as create, drop, enable and disable. So this is actually the DDL statement. So if you don't have these buttons, you can issue, for example, the drop command in the statement window. Okay, so for each tab here, so they have its own option on what you can do. Okay, and okay, now I would like to show you how to use the create object wizard here. So if you notice, okay, so we have this plus symbol, so you can click on the arrow here. So you can, if for example you want to create a new table without writing the DDL statement, so you can write here. For example, we want to create a student table, so table name is student. Okay, so let's say we have an attribute called student ID, so the data type maybe varchar 2 and the size is maybe 20, and we want it to be not null. Okay, and after that we want to have a student name. Okay, and varchar again, let's say the size is 50 and it's also not null. Okay, so if the column is not enough, so you can click on the add column button here. So press next. Okay, so here it will ask whether we want to set a primary key for the table. So there are a few options here. Populated from if we don't want to define any primary key, then we just click on this one. No primary key is the default value. Populated from a new sequence means we want to create a sequence. A sequence is an object in Oracle which we can define like an automatic numbering, whether the number will be increased or decreased each time we insert a new row. For example, we can start with student ID 100 and the second student will be 101, and the number will keep increasing when we insert a new record. Okay, so this is if we want to create a new sequence. The third one is if we want to create the primary key from an existing sequence, or if we do not want to use any sequence, then we choose here, not populated. Okay, so another one is populated by identity column, means that it will create another new attribute and we can assign that attribute as the primary key. So I choose not populated, and we can name the constraint here, so you can edit if you would want it with another name. So I just leave it like that. Okay, so we select the primary key, student ID. If you have another attribute you want it to be primary key together with student ID, you can select here. So I just leave it here, and then I press next. Okay, this is to define any foreign key. So you can select the attribute and click the arrow, so it will move to the right. Okay, so we don't have any foreign key right now, so just press next. Okay, this window is to add other constraints. If you have any constraints you want to apply to the table, like check or unique constraint, you can put it here. So you can choose the attributes, and then you can move it to the right and write the constraint. Okay, so now I press next. Okay, so now the table is ready to be created, so we click on create table. Okay, so now we already have the student table, okay, with all the data type and the size that we have defined just now. So for each of the table, you can see here, actually we can do more things here. Okay, add column, modify column, rename, drop, and so on. Okay, so there are many things that you can do in this window. Okay, that's all my demonstration for creating table with Apex.